you've been with PFL now for just about a year and already had some wild twists and turns. How would you describe these first 12 months?
Yeah, I'd say the first word that comes to mind is a whirlwind. I think it's almost exactly a year since I signed. But hindsight's 2020, and if I could turn back time, I'd make the same exact decision. It's been a great run so far. It's keeping me super active. This is my third fight in like 4 or 5 months. So yeah, that's awesome. It's been awesome.
How has it been adjusting to the rule set? Because obviously you're not allowed to throw elbow strikes.
Yeah, that part I got to talk to them, man. I got to try to like if all the players come together, maybe if we all agree to it. I understand they don't want us to get cut because then you're fighting again. But there's 10 weeks in between. I feel like they do it on Ultimate Fighter. They let you do elbows on Ultimate Fighter. So I'm like, you know what? Let us do some elbows, man. Because I feel like that would open up a lot of weird stalemate positions, honestly.
Or is even in the championship because there's nothing to fight for after that.
Yeah, at least give me elbows in the championship. Yeah.
Hmm. For sure, for sure. So now, obviously, one of the most fascinating parts about your first year with PFL it goes back to that weekend at the end of June. You just beat Yamato Nishikawa, first PFL victory. It was not enough points to reach the top four in the lightweight standings at first, but then next morning they've made changes. Potential Raush Manfio, they're suspended. You took Schulte's spot. Where was your head at? Like, let's say first that night when you didn't think you'd made the playoffs, and then the next morning when you learned you did.
Yeah, so obviously that night I won the fight. So winning is always a good relief feeling you get. But then it was like the other side of it was like I'm out of the running to be in the finals for that $1 million. So that kind of stung a little bit. Went home. Literally landed at home at like 7 or 8 in the morning, and my phone was not still no service. My PT was on the plane with me too. He's like Shane. He's a few rows back. I'm like, what's up? He's like, you check your phone? I'm like, no, I have no service, man. He's like, here, catch. He throws me his phone, and I catch it, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? MMA Fighting.com. This is legit. I was like, what? My phone starts blowing up because I get service at that point. A bunch of texts, a bunch of things getting tagged in. I'm like, this is wild. I'm like, where did this come from? What had wild opportunity, but the fact that the playoffs are in New York, I feel like the stars were aligned for me to fight on this card.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. It really is kind of like everything kind of just lined up perfectly for you in the sense that, yes, you are fighting again here in New York, and obviously the opportunity came your way. I mean, how are you feeling about the fact that, I mean, obviously you're glad that you're here, but the fact that it is in New York too?
Oh man, if you ask me where would you want to fight, I'd say MSG in New York. Why would I not pick that spot? I'm gonna pack the place out. I'm undefeated in New York, 7-0 or 7 or 8. No, I'm not even sure anymore. And it's gonna be my fourth fight at MSG, so no brainer. If you have to give me a place to pick, I'm picking New York. The fact that it's in New York, I'm like I said, man, the stars are aligned. I just had a feeling like my season wasn't going to be done, and I wasn't going to be not fighting in New York. I knew one way or another I was going to be on a New York card this year.
Now, obviously you love the fight here, but your last two fights were across the country, one in Vegas, one in Georgia. How was it to kind of get out of this area? Lately in the last few years, you haven't fought outside of this area very often.
Yeah, so was it. I mean, obviously, the coming up short in Vegas sucks, but Atlanta was cool. Didn't mind fighting in Atlanta at all. It was actually the arena was awesome. The host hotel was awesome. I had a nice Airbnb. The fight week was awesome. Everything went smooth. So Atlanta it was awesome.
And going back to Atlanta too, that fight obviously you got the win, but I think there were some people who were watching it that were a little surprised at your approach in the final round because knowing the standings, right? What was your mentality kind of throughout that fight? Were you thinking about the fact like, man, I got to try and find a finish here because I might need the points?
Yeah, so my goal was to go out there and get a first round finish. That's why I took him down right off the bat, and I thought I would be able to get the finish on the ground, and that was the game plan going into the fight. He first of all he can take a punch. I see ate quite a few big shots from me where I was like, holy, this kid's eating all these shots. But he wasn't as eager to get up as I assumed that he would be. So when I took him down, he never really tried to get up, and that's when I feel like I was gonna. The game plan was take him down. He's gonna try to get up. I'll be able to get his back, choke him out, or something like that. Open up a scramble, and I'll be able to catch a submission. But he never really showed eagerness to try to get up. He just kind of laid there and looked for heel strikes and palm strikes from the bottom. So it kind of it kind of stalemated me on being able to get the finish. Going to the third round, I was like, you know what? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If I get a third round finish, it's still not enough at this point. So I just have to keep the game plan at that point.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of a weird thing here because you're winning the fight, but you're also maybe
Yeah.
not in the position you want to be for the standing. So that's the first time you've ever really been in that scenario. How does that feel as a fighter where you're almost like it's almost like a win-win, but also a lose?
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely was weird. As soon as the first round was done, though, I was like, you know what, fuck it, the points, just focus on getting the win because that ultimately that's the most important thing. And I mean, not making it to the playoffs would have sucked, but getting the win at the end of the day, that is the absolute most important thing. So at that point, once I didn't get the finish in the first and second round, I was like, you know what, I got to stick to the game plan. I'm not going to give him his Hail Mary shot and just stay on the feet with him just to make it a banger. At this point, that has such a clear path to victory. Let me just stick with what's working.
How do you feel your body is adjusting now? Because this is your second fight at lightweight after pretty much your whole career was at featherweight. How do you feel in there competing against guys who maybe are a little bigger?
I don't feel like I'm a small lightweight at all, honestly. Like I'm still cutting a decent amount of weight, so it's still fucking sucks. It's still not a fun process, and especially doing it back to back to back like this. I couldn't do 45 back to back to back like this. I know I couldn't. My body's saying I couldn't. Like the weight I would have to cut would be stupid. It would be terrible for my performance. I'd be terrible at home. It'd be cranky all the time. So I think I'm well adjusted at 155, and I can't really see myself ever doing a season at 145.
Okay, but you think maybe a one-off could still be something that you might do, or are you basically done with 45?
Yeah, that would be maybe if the money talks or something like that because that would be very hard still.
Okay, okay. And going back again to this whole situation here, where you ended up being the beneficiary of a tough situation with Natan Schulte and Raush
Yeah.
Manfio. You've expressed some sympathies to them and their situation. They're close friends. Matt Matrix kind of lined them up here, and it's a weird situation. But even as the beneficiary, how do you feel about kind of the way PFL handled the situation?
Yeah, everybody's kind of like the guys coming at me for it, like I was the one that made the decision. Listen, if Yamoto knocked me the fuck out, and he got let's say he knocked me in the third round, had a crazy knockout, but he didn't have enough points, and the same situation happened with their fight. You don't think that they would have gave him the opportunity if he just knocked me out? They knocked out Shane Burgos, and this kid's 20 years old. He's going like they would 100% would have gave him the same opportunity. So I don't think it was a me thing. I think it was more so a them thing. Like, listen, I sympathize with them 100%. Like having to fight your teammate, especially like the godfather of your kids. Screw that. I'd never want to do that. I probably wouldn't agree to doing it. But then you put in PFL in kind of a weird position where they kind of have to do something about it. It's because you know what I mean. You got more teammates that are going to fight each other in this season too. So it's like it's damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing where they're going to get. I'm going to get. Everyone's going to get shit for it. But like I said, at the end of the day, I didn't make the decision. All I can do is take the opportunity to run with it, and I'm going to make the absolute most out of it.
Now, of course, you are here, like we said. Everything happened the way it happened. You're here. You're going to be fighting in New York. You drew Clay Collar here. He likes to strike. He's a pretty accomplished boxer for an MMA fighter, to be perfectly honest, right? You've been known to throw down on the feet, of course. And how do you kind of see the two of you matching up in the striking department?
Yeah, it's a banger of a matchup. It just is what it is. Everybody knows what to expect in this fight. It's one of those fights when I first signed with the PFL, everyone's like, "Oh, I want to see Shane versus Clay." Even when I was fighting at 45, everyone was like, "I want to see that fight. I want to see that fight." I'm like, so I've already had my eyes on this matchup for like a year now at this point. So now it's coming to fruition. And in New York, like I said, the stars are aligned. This is going to be a banger from the first belt to the last belt. I can't see this fight being boring in any way.
And obviously, the goal here is you've got to get through to the finals here. The win is the priority, but you think there's pretty much no way along the way anyway that you guys can't just find yourselves in a fun fight. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way. Like
Mm.
we're not going to go out there and play it safe to try to make it to the finals and be unscathed. It's just not my style, and I know it's damn well not his style as well. So like, it's just the referee's going to say go. We're going to meet in the middle, and it's going to be a car crash. It's going to be fun to watch.
How do you like the fight hits? Everyone's thinking about the striking, right? But the fight hits the ground. Both of you have at least some chops on the ground. How do you feel like you have the advantage down there? Who has the advantage down
No, I think I definitely have the advantage on there. If you look at my record, my previous fights, and even my last fight, I can wrestle. I can wrestle offensively and defensively. I got submissions off my back on top. So yeah, I do think I have the advantage there. But I'm not putting too much thought into that because I do feel like this is going to be one of those fights that's going to be primarily on the feet, honestly, and I can't see it like it's gonna be fun. I'm excited for this style of matchup. I feel like I thrive under these kind of matchups that the guy's coming forward, he's trying to take me out. Like the more pressure he brings, and the more willing he is to try to go into dangerous positions and try to finish me, I'm gonna oblige, and we're gonna meet in the middle.
Now, of course, Olivier Aubin Mercier, he dealt you your first loss in the PFL. He's on the other side of the semifinal bracket here, fighting right before you guys. What lessons did you take away from that fight against him at the start of the season?
It was my first fight at 55. It was a weird fight. It felt more like a bad sparring session than a fight. I didn't really take much damage. He just did a really good job at nullifying me and stalemating me. What I would take out of it is to get more reckless because I got reckless at the end, but it was too little, too late at that point. I should have got more reckless in those positions where he had me and put myself maybe in more danger and risk myself getting finished, but risk myself getting out of it and getting a finish too. So if anything, I'd say it made me more unpredictable.
And then, I think you'll take the wins how you can get them. If you can win here and you'll win in the finals, $1 million is $1 million no matter how you do it. But having said that, would it be nice for you to get that second chance at OAM and do it against him too?
Of course, of course. That's the like I said, stars are aligned for me to this fight being in New York and the finals wherever the finals are. I don't really care because it'll be a rematch with OAM who gave me my first loss in the PFL. So that would and that's not me overlooking his opponent because he is a tough opponent too. But I do lean towards him winning that fight. And I wanted to win that fight so I can get that rematch too. So I get the win in August against Clay. Then I get to fight him again in the finals for $1 million to get redemption, to get a belt. There's so much on the line with that. So, man, it gets me excited just thinking about it.